After my journey, what then? Right?
Yeah,
Everyone talks about psychedelics as this miracle drug. Really, it's the download, but what are you going to do with the file? Right? If you never
exactly.
open it again, you never look at the contents again, it
How
gets
fucking
lost
good is it?
somewhere on your hard drive, right? It's like, what was the point? You're just tripping at that point.
Right.
You're just taking substances. So what do you do with that information? And that's the integration, right? Integration is this beautiful, it's a way of life. It's a lot of what I teach as an integration specialist and in the education work that I do for entheonation and double blind and medicinal
Mm,
mindfulness. We're really talking about like ethical facilitating and what does a work look like between the works, right? Like
yeah.
what does it look like outside of ceremony? And for me in my own personal work and how it's evolved, I'm really interested in creating containers where community comes together outside of the medicine.
Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I'm excited and delighted to be joined by Skye Weaver. Let me tell you about this extraordinary woman and what she's been up to. Skye is an earth medicine mentor. She's a psychedelic self-care specialist. God, I mean, you should have one of those in your life. Everyone should have one of those in their life, I feel like. She's an entheogenic advocate supporting the international medicine community through mentorship, education, and ceremony. Her work is the weaving and remembering of the many pieces of the self back into integral wholeness. Skye offers coaching and mentorship in integral medicine practices, living in right relationship with all things, nervous system regulation, and sacred self-care practices. She hosts community psychedelic integration circles twice a month through InnerSpace Integration and the Aware Project the to support the community in the spaces between ceremonies, which is very important if you participate in ceremonies. She also founded Not a Shaman School as an in-depth experiential training for new and seasoned journeyers who feel called to the practice of integral medicine work and learn guardianship and facilitation skills, which almost all plant ceremonies do require. She hosts CannAbyss, can, and then the A is capital, and then abyss, right? A legal, above ground cannabis practice for people interested in exploring non ordinary states of consciousness in a safe and legal and navigable way. In addition to her 11 plus years walking the medicine path, Skye's trained at the Hakomi Institute of California and with the Center of Medicinal Mindfulness, where she's now on the leadership team and helps co-facilitate trainings and retreats. She's also a certified yoga teacher, and her resume continues on. She's a Reiki master in the Asui and Karuna lineages. She's a trained body worker. I feel like everyone should have you in their life, my friend. Thai yoga massage,
Yeah.
stretch therapy. Why don't you live closer to me? And she has an MFA in acting from Harvard, which makes us brother and sister. Not that I have a degree from Harvard. Mine is from the New School University. But wow, without further ado, wow, Skye Weaver, welcome. Thank you so much for beaming in. It's an honor to have you on my show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah, I feel like concision is not one of my strong suits. So thank you for going through that very long resume.
It
It's
gets
just like, what
better
do
and
you do with
better.
a life of learning? Like it's just you just keep learning these things. And I feel like they're all applicable to this space and to the ceremony space. So yeah, again, just like a weaving of all of the different modalities into being. Yeah.
I'm so glad that I didn't stop. I know I probably think and say that more often than most people, but with your incredible credentials, I was like, is this going on too long? Oh no, it just gets better and better and better. That's so crazy. So you were an actor too, like myself. I come from that
Yeah, I actually
line of
got
work.
into a new school as well. I went to
Nice.
Harvard, but yeah, I did
I
the
would have chosen
the
Harvard.
grad school audition circuit. Yeah, I got called back at NYU too. That was my first pick, but
Nice.
didn't get in there. But Harvard was a great program at the American Repertory Theater, and in
Yeah,
association with the Moscow Art Theater. So it's a
absolutely. The
um,
one and only. I have a friend who's graduating from there this year, I believe. She got into Harvard.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. God bless her. God bless them all. um,
God bless them all.
yeah,
God
it's
bless
quite
those
the
student
industry.
loans, man.
Yeah. Well, there's that too. Good luck with them. My God, I can't
Yes, right.
even. Don't even get me started on those.
Yeah.
In general, but then when you get into above your bachelor's and master's and PhDs, it's such the whole system is designed for debt.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And it's more than doubled since I graduated somehow. Like my debt, it's crazy. So
it's amazing how that works,
yeah.
right? It's like I know I owed X amount, and now I owe twice as much. That's the setup.
Yeah.
It's
Almost as if it's indentured servitude. It's very interesting.
it,
Yeah.
it's almost exactly like that, I would say. And I talk about that a lot.
One might say.
Yeah. If I didn't
Exactly.
know better,
Yeah.
I would say that was by
Mm-hmm.
design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, I was just
Yeah.
posting about that. Unfortunately, freedom is going to be, very illusory until we free ourselves of this central banking system. And I know that we're not going to get into that, but it needs to be said and permeate the consciousness of this
Yeah.
society, because it's
Yeah.
literally the bane of our existence. It's the reason for
Mm-hmm.
all the strife and war and crisis and catastrophe, because nothing creates debt like those things. And so
Oh,
obviously
yes.
if you have all the money in the world, you can continue to create those things. So
Well, you
yeah,
got to have priorities, right? Yeah, keep those
that's
priorities
right.
straight.
So sad
Yeah,
that
we gave up
that
the
is their
love of
priorities.
God for the love of money. So it's
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's some of what we're healing in these non-ordinary states outside of systems and structure and government and politics and debt
hmm
ceilings. It's like there's something bigger going on that we are a part of, and that we keep waking up into this reality each
hmm
day. So this idea, I was just having this conversation earlier, is like this idea of like trying to kill our ego or overcome our ego or eradicate our ego is a little misinformed and also a little dangerous, because our ego is kind of the interface between
yeah, you
our
can't.
soul and this reality that we again keep waking up into every day,
hmm
that seems consistent in our perception of time and
Yeah,
space. But yeah, we need it, but it also makes a better servant than a master. So how do
absolutely.
we,
And
you know, um,
it's
work
amazing that
on it
and work on it, and that's the
and
key.
work with?
You don't have to kill it. We
Right.
live in obviously a very war orientated society, and that's there's some
Yeah.
people who insist, well, we were bred to be warriors. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we were bred to be very, very, what's the word? Adaptable, in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
our lineage. And so we make great
Mm-hmm.
warriors, but we make great peacemakers as well,
Yeah.
mothers,
Necessity is the
fathers.
mother of invention, right?
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
it's fascinating
Yeah.
to me that we started this conversation joking about debt, but yet some of the first things that people really wake up to when they have their aha moment is that this material world that they've been convinced is the priority, which because of society, that they realize
Mm-hmm.
that that's not that priority is backwards, and that it's
Mm-hmm.
not a material
Mm-hmm.
world we're living in,
Mm-hmm.
that we've been kind of duped into that. And I
Mm-hmm.
was wondering if you could, tell me a little bit about your background and how was there an aha moment for you, and how did you get into the space that you're working in now?
Yeah, yeah. I love this because we're kind of talking about like I think there's a both and here, that it's not that we're living an illusion. It's that what we're living in is only a piece of the puzzle. And that the information that we've been given of, we are disconnected, we live and we die and there's nothing else, or we live and we have to atone for our sins in order to make it to heaven.
My God.
Like these, whatever these structures or systems, whether it be religion or politics, whatever it is, belief, right? The power of belief traps us inside of what we can possibly vision to be true or real. And so in this, I think we're under-informed when it comes to the capitalistic, money-based, government-run systems, under-informed. And because we are living within those, so we need to be informed about those as well, right? In order to buck a system, you got to understand it. You got to be able to hack it in order to buck it, right? So it's not about being a monk and going and hiding in a cave. That could be some people's paths, and it is some people's paths. But for those of us that need to engage in this world and in this society, we need to understand what we're working with here. And I think that's the beauty of education, as again, under-informed and underdeveloped our educational systems are, even echelons like Harvard or Yale or New School, higher education, quote unquote, they allow for more specific education, and allows that education, that knowledge allows us to expand, what we think is possible. And there's always more to learn. And I come from a family of educators. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. My dad was a college professor, and he taught religion and philosophy. He's an ordained minister. So I come from this very religious background, but more of that's what we do on Sundays, and that's what Dad does. And have the fear of God in you. But as far as practicing it or seeing people being very Christian, I'm kind of like Jesus in the synagogue when he was little. He's like, "You're all hypocrites. None of you are practicing these what you're preaching." And so it really took me getting out of my hometown. I grew up in a small town in Florida. And it took me getting out, and it was theater that got me out. I went to San Francisco and then did grad school in Boston, and then I moved to LA. And I was pursuing an acting career. And what I noticed, my pain point, right? In coaching or in different work, they say, what's the pain point? My pain point was always relational, right? And I was like, I've moved from Florida to San Francisco to Boston to LA, and it's the same thing. Am I allowed to curse on here?
Absolutely.
I curse on your phone? Okay, great. And I was like, it's the same fucking thing. Right? It's the same thing. And I had this aha moment, this epiphany where I was like, wow, well, the only common denominator is me. So it must be something that I'm doing.
When you say relational, right? And what do you mean by
people?
What do you mean by people?
People, heartbreaks, hurts. When I moved to LA, I was after grad school, I was going through a divorce and friends, and this history of building deep, close relationships, and then something happening and me just fucking it all up. And that's my biggest fear in life, that I'm going to do something that's going to just destroy every relationship that I have and every connection that I have to every person that I love.
Was that the pattern that you were meeting where you went?
Yeah.
But were you, were you blaming yourself or was it?
Oh no, I was blaming everything else. I was blaming everything else at that point. Yeah. I would break up with my life and move to a different corner of the country. And I did that 3 times, Florida, San Francisco, Boston, LA, and I finally was like, oh God, like the only common denominator is me. So I literally like threw my hands up and I was like, okay, universe, or like whatever we call you. I was like super skeptical. I was like, whatever we call you, I'm ready, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it is I'm asking for, but I think I finally see. It's like I finally saw the cracks in my
Mm.
reality or in my system or in my logic, right? Like whatever it was that I was
Yeah.
convincing myself was
You
real.
realized, well, you saw the pattern, I think, first, right? You
Yeah,
realized,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, and was able to have some humility and self reflection, the ability
Mm.
to assess and to discern and be like, huh, yeah, yeah, there is literally nothing else that
Yeah.
is tracking here but me.
Mhm.
And so I had that, I surrender kind of moment to the universe. I was like, I'm ready. I don't know what I'm asking for. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm ready. And about 6 months later, 4 months later, I met this amazing woman that introduced me to the spiritual community that would become my chosen family
Mm.
for over a decade. And definitely options for breaking up with that life and moving
Mm.
away from it too. But was able, because of the medicine work, because of this path, because of the resiliency that's built in the medicine spaces, because of the communication um, skills that I developed. Um, this passion, this almost obsession for growth, for
Yeah.
understanding self, for refining the questions, right? I'm not like as interested in the answers as I am in like refining the questions, because as soon as you refine the question, like what unfolds
Right.
shifts.
And it's always,
Um,
the answer is going to be different for everyone. So,
yeah.
it's the
And
questions that are,
yet it's always somehow unfolding towards one grand truth, like
Mhm.
that truth with the capital T that nobody can tell you what it is. All you can do is experience it. And when you do
Yeah.
experience that truth for the first time, like the only reaction that you can have is just like laughter, like,
Yeah.
like, wow, okay, there
Laughter,
it is. Wow,
tears.
it was so simple.
Yeah.
Tears, laughter. You're just like, what?
Sometimes,
What?
but sometimes the tears are coming from the laughter.
All of it, right? Yeah, just
Yeah.
the awe, that
Yeah.
opens up into wonder, right? It opens up into further curiosity. And I think that
Hmm.
curiosity is that thread that I'm always pulling on, to see what
Yeah.
unravels. Mhm.
It's, and it's, I've had people on my show who, have devoted their life to this study of the interaction between humans and psychedelics, and how far back into our culture it goes, digging into the Mayans and the calendar and
Oh
quantum
yeah.
physics and the pineal
Oh
gland,
yeah.
and there's so much to be said about that. But I'm not a scientist in that regard, although I have
Mhm.
spent my fair time experimenting. There certainly is something to be said about being shown the truth, for you, and the
Mhm.
truth that you may need to see at that time, when sitting in ceremony. And I think that anyone who's spent any time in a plant ceremony will back that statement up, because the medicine is, if it's it can do so many things for so many people, depending. But one of the things I think it does across the board is it tends to reveal truths. And sometimes ad nauseum until you see and understand. It
Okay,
tends
okay,
to
okay, I
it
got it.
will play
Yeah.
on repeat, a lot like the things in your life. It's like, okay,
All
until
night
finally you're like, all
long.
right, I understand, I understand.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's kind of the space that you're operating in now, which is an incredible
Mm,
and noble position to be in. But I would love to hear a little bit about your career and what you've seen personally with plant medicine and psychedelics and some of the way that they have supported issues versus I mean, like, we live in a world that is now evidently and apparently dominated by big pharma, and that's part of the trouble that we're in as a society, is especially in America. And obviously it's a global phenomenon now, but America
mm,
is one of the most exceptionally highly medicated places on the planet. And you've had a chance to see people, probably more than most, taking a different alternative, towards
mm,
healing.
mhm,
And I would love
mhm,
to hear a little bit about that.
mm. Yeah. So, I think this path, I think psychedelics are a tool, just like meditation, just like nutrition, just like community, um, just like a knowledge or education, right? Tools to be sharpened and to be wielded and to gain skills at. Um, I do believe that, or what I have seen is that sometimes pharmaceuticals are helpful and
Yeah,
necessary for the betterment and life extension of people. And even sometimes when people are in a process of tapering off or
certainly.
trying to find different ways of treating their symptoms, their pain,
Absolutely.
their dis-ease, however that manifests in their bodies. That sometimes we do need the pharmaceuticals. Um, uh, Otherwise, the life expectancy would be shorter, and we would be dealing with um,
Yeah.
what life looked like 100 years ago. Um,
Certainly, penicillin can come in great handy, especially if you've been
oh
bitten by
yeah.
a lion or a shark. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Mhm.
no,
Unless you're allergic
listen.
to it, like I am, and
Are
then you
you?
got to
That's
find something
crazy.
else. That's like the only thing I'm allergic to.
Wow. What do you do?
Penicillin.
What is there a
Um,
substitute? I'm sure there is a
I
substitute, but
stay
like,
I stay healthy.
good call. Yeah.
Um,
Good
I
idea.
avoid
Even
everything
better.
that's dangerous. No. Yeah, no, I just try to stay healthy. I haven't needed
Yeah.
um, antibiotics in so long. I think I took like Zithromax or something. But it's just been forever since I've needed anything like that. Um, yeah, and I trust the doctors to know what it is that I need. Though I should probably educate myself, because if you're not educated within the Western medical system, you can't advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
So
What's
I've been
crazy
through that
is,
as well.
I was reading about penicillin, and it's basically a fungus, or a
Yeah,
synthetic
yeah.
fungus. But
It
I'm
it
like,
was like,
huh, look at that,
oops.
son of a
I
bitch.
was
I was
like,
like,
oops, I left that thing in that petri dish growing a little too long, and look
yeah.
what happened.
And then I ate it and I
Yeah,
got
I don't.
better. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know if you're a fan of Outlander, and this might be a spoiler alert, but there's a whole thing where she like time travels 200 years earlier, and she needs penicillin. She's like growing it on pieces of moldy bread under
Son of a bitch.
under little glass things. I'm like, okay, clever.
Yeah.
We'll see. They
Something
didn't
to
have
it.
needles back then either, so how are you
Right.
gonna give it anyway? Yeah. So I've seen the necessity. I've seen how people can veer, including myself, so far into the alternative, that so far left that
Yeah.
that they that they come around full circle, and it starts to seem like the far right, right? It's like,
Right.
um, and I
That seems
think
to be happening a
extremism.
lot.
Oh yeah. Oh my. COVID taught us anything.
Yeah.
I think extremism in whatever shape it takes, no matter which religion is touting it, or what belief system is touting it, can be dangerous because they're just walking around with their hands over their ears,
Yep.
and it becomes divisive. And we saw the uncivil war that erupted on Facebook and online during COVID, just
Yeah.
with people's communities tearing each other apart
Yeah.
because of beliefs. And if COVID taught me anything, it's that, like, rupture happens, repair is possible. But it
Mhm.
really takes everybody coming to the table and willing to speak their truth, right? Like
Mhm.
finding their truth, finding their voice and speaking it, but also the ability to listen and to receive other people's truths, whether you believe it or not.
Right.
But
No, that's the biggest thing, the
the
biggest
need to,
challenge. And
everybody is kind of entitled to their own belief. We just hope it doesn't start to cross over and injure other people in the
but
process.
when you learn to listen and
Yeah.
and can remain in a state of empathy, even if you're frustrated, and understand that a lot of times, especially in that situation, you're dealing with people who are very much, in a state of fear and mild fight or flight, and if you
Mm-hmm.
don't, I mean, and still, people are still, they talk about what happened, and they're shaming people. I'm like, listen,
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
you're not.
The-
So they're not accomplishing anything then. There is no lesson learned. If you're going
yeah.
to continue to shame
Yeah.
people for the actions they took, you're just going to ostracise them, and they're not going to listen to anything that you have to say. You can't be hitting
Mm-hmm.
people over the head like that. It's just, it's not, then no, we don't progress as a society. I'm, I
Mm-hmm.
tell my brother, I have a twin brother who's, he tends to, be very outspoken with the truth, his truth, with no
Mm-hmm.
empathy,
Nice. Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, you can't just say that. You know what I mean? People
Mm-hmm.
were acting in what they thought was the best interests of themselves and their family.
Mm-hmm.
They thought they were doing what's right. And were they
Yeah.
scared? Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're scared, you may not make the right decision, but you're going to criticize them for loving someone enough to try to protect them. That's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're mocking
Mm-hmm.
them for wanting to protect their loved ones. And
Yeah.
that's not a thing to mock
Exactly.
someone for. So,
Yeah, and so,
it's,
like, let's take this what we're talking about right now and put it towards psychedelics. Put it towards what psychedelics are for. Psychedelic mind manifesting. They teach you how you think. So all of this whole conversation about having no compassion or shaming people. Imagine, that experience against yourself inside your mind on a psychedelic, right? Like that kind of turmoil, that kind of um, um, vision of one's internal reality, it can be very dysregulating, right, for
mm-hmm,
someone's life, for someone's world. And these are the kinds of things, right? Like signing up to sit in a ceremony, to have a psychedelic experience, or to take medicine on your own. One has to be educated enough. Here we are back to
mm-hmm,
education. One has to be educated enough to understand what they're saying yes to. Yes to the
mm-hmm.
possibility of. It's not that, you're going to wind up in hell and all your worst nightmares will come true, but there's a possibility.
Yeah.
No, people have these quote unquote bad trips, which I like to language as challenging trips. That would be very challenging. I was scared for most of my life. That's what all the propaganda says, that you take psychedelics, you'll lose your mind, you'll be stuck there forever, wind up in a mental institution thinking that your flesh is burning off of your body and
Yeah.
you're in hell, right? That's what I learned in Dare. Um, and so
In there.
this, in Dare, right?
I remember there.
As we did like our little glee club music
Yeah.
singing,
I
like
remember the
singing
shirt.
about,
I got to get one of those
anti-drugs.
shirts.
Oh yeah. And the shirts. Yeah, absolutely. If you have a vintage Dare shirt,
My God.
those
Probably
things
worth
are
good
worth
money.
something. Yeah. Yeah. But so, like, again, educating yourself, understanding the risks. If you're going to take a pharmaceutical, I think you're going to ask the doctor what the side effects might be, what might the results be, right?
Hmm.
So you want to educate yourself on what the potential is of these. Most of the literature coming out is like, this is the miracle drug. Hey, take this pill,
Yeah.
ketamine, and put this
Yeah.
eye mask
Most
on,
recently, ketamine.
and when you wake up, you'll be happy. And I think there's harm that can be done with that, like Mind Bloom sending out, just mailing people ketamine in an eye mask and being like, this is your
There
path
you
to
go. You're
joy.
going to feel much better. Yeah. No shit.
You're going to feel much better when you
Until
don't
fuck.
have any education as to what might happen to you or any kind of support
My
system
God.
before, during, or after. And so for me, like in this work, we're really talking about, well, what does the work look like, and how do we set up a spiritual support system around us in order to maximize the result,
Yeah.
right? How do we prepare ourselves? How do we educate ourselves? Possible? What kind of supportive therapies or coaching or counsel could be possible ahead of time? How could I prepare myself to understand what might happen and maybe how I could navigate, right? Um,
Hmm. Very
um,
important.
how to navigate in the space. And then after my journey, what then? Right?
Yeah.
Everyone talks about psychedelics as this miracle drug. Really, it's 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 the download, but what are you going to do with the file?
Right.
Right? If you never
Exactly.
open it again, you never look at the contents again,
Yeah.
it
What
gets
fucking
lost
good is it for
somewhere
you?
on your hard
Yeah.
drive, right? It's like, what was the point? You're just tripping at that point.
Right.
You're just taking substances. So what do you do with that information? And that's the integration, right? Integration is this beautiful, it's a way of life. It's a lot of what I teach as an integration specialist, and in the education work that I do for entheonation and double blind and medicinal
Mm.
mindfulness. We're really talking about like ethical facilitating, and what does a work look like between the works, right? Like
Yeah.
what does it look like outside of ceremony? And for me, in my own personal work, and how it's evolved, I'm really interested in creating containers where community comes together outside of the medicine. We
Mm.
journey together, we do medicine, but where's the community outside of ceremony? What does the work look like after ceremony,
Yeah.
before ceremony? How does integration become preparation for the next time that you journey? Because it's a path, it's not a one time
Hmm.
thing. We're not one and done here, right? It's like we're walking a path, and it's every step of the way, it's every day, it's every choice, it's every time we catch ourselves in that thought that I always
Hmm.
have. Oh, there it is. There it is. And to me, like the life hack is, how aware can you be
Hmm.
in every moment, with every breath, every choice that you make? Because if you're not aware, then you're actually just reacting. And it's most
Yeah.
likely a habit and something that's already been prescribed for you, instead
Yep.
of having the ability to take that moment to actually assess, discern, and actually make a choice,
Make a conscious choice instead of an
a
unconscious
conscious
choice.
choice. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. How aware can you be? And so that's that, right? It's a way of being, um,
Yes.
and like an
Um,
orientation to the world.
yeah. I had
Hmm.
Bruce Lipton on my show, and I
Mm.
mean, I've heard him speak a bunch of times and met him a couple times. But he always makes a joke, and he's like, "Listen, I don't have time to deal with your BS." And he's like, and I don't mean bullshit. I mean your belief systems, which are like bullshit sometimes. But he was, but
Yep, the power of belief. Yep.
our
Hmm.
power of belief and belief systems and these
Hmm.
programs
Hmm.
that we all get. They people look at a computer and they tend to forget, or even AI, the latest craze of the world, that this is all modeled off the neural network, off the way we humans assimilate information.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah,
computers
we're
took
just
their leap.
externalizing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And computers took their biggest leap when the brainiacs in Silicon Valley realized that, hey, wait a minute, why don't we try modeling it after the brain? Oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden things took off, but
Interconnectivity.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
interconnectivity. Um,
What? What if they're linked together and can share information?
my
Right?
God.
Because we all are, right? We all are so interconnected, interdependent in that
Hmm.
way. Hmm.
And one of
Hmm.
the things that I think people don't realize, partly because of the stigma that psychedelics have gotten, thanks to Uncle Sam and a lot of years of propaganda, is how much interconnectivity in the brain, scientifically speaking, that can be found in many of these psychedelics, which I'm sure you work with, and that I, you know, take on a mostly regular basis. I don't. Most of the psychedelics that I do are, you would call them sub psychedelic because the dosages are so small. But what I know they do is they allow the two hemispheres of my brain, which have been, you know, there's a little separation there. If you're looking at a brain, um, and sometimes through habit and belief systems and other things, parts of the brain stop talking to each other for whatever
They
reason.
isolate.
They
Hmm.
isolate, and look, part of that is
Hmm.
due to expediency. It's due to efficiency, and that's part of it. But sometimes the other part is due to trauma. It's due to bad habits. There could be any number of reasons,
Mm.
pain and loss, but
Exposure. Yeah. Whatever the
exposure.
exposure is. Hmm.
And these psychedelics, one of the reasons why I am an advocate for them is because I have got to a point where I'm aware when things start to light up for me. I can viscerally feel it in my body. I don't need to be looking at an EEG, although I have.
Right.
So that's another way you can begin to understand the way that the mind communicates with itself, and the more communication it's doing, the more information it's taking in, the more awareness you have, the more consciousness you have. And obviously there's a natural expansion, and it's not always, you're not always like, what's that fucking crazy movie with, not Bradley Cooper, maybe Bradley Cooper, one of them is, that's where he takes the damn pill, but the other one with
Lucy.
the, yeah, Lucy, you can't always be
Yeah.
like fucking Lucy.
Yeah.
It would
Right.
be overload. But
Limitless.
Limitless, that's the other one. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
love Bradley Cooper, he's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
But yeah, but you know what I'm
yeah,
talking about. It's like,
I do, and so let's rewind back to that, right? The issues are in we all have experiences that create patterns, right? And the big issues become when those things become isolated, right? Like different parts, sides of the brain are not communicating to each other. Um, and that the more interconnectivity there is, the healthier, the more efficient, the more vital the system is.
yeah.
And that interconnectivity within our brains or within our families or our chosen families or the
Hmm.
culture or the world or a self other planet universe, right, are kind of like
Hmm.
the big circles that we deal with, that we live within. And so this challenge of how aware can you be, um,
Yeah.
is a way of navigating as we work relationally. Again, just like there's relational with self, there's a relational with other, with you, with anyone, with the planet, with the universe. And so this ability to connect and not only
Yeah.
to connect, but to connect all of the dots, and to remember that there's some kind of magical, unexplained, scientific, spiritual, all the same thing, words
Hmm.
for the same, unexplainable, um, uh, interconnectivity amongst
Hmm.
all things, that we call
Yeah.
reality, or the cosmos, or the universe. And things like psychedelics, or maybe even breathwork practice,
Yes.
or
Which
really
can be
good
very
sex,
psychedelic.
tantric,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tantric sex, or Sufi
Sex on
spinning
psychedelics with Tantra.
Oh, whoa. Like,
Why not?
make my brain explode.
You're right. I always
My
ask
heart would
people, I
just
go,
like,
I mean,
um,
it's limitless, the combinations of these
yeah.
things.
Exactly. And I think that's what we're learning through Bruce Lipton's work, Greg Braden's work, right? Like all
Joe
these different,
Dispenza. Yeah.
Joe Dispenza, beautiful work. I'm excited to see more women and more BIPOC and more LGBTQ people in these upper echelons
Yeah.
of studies of consciousness, and who's listening to them, as we practice inclusion and decolonization. But it doesn't negate the importance and the power of their work. That what they are all proving is that science has finally gotten advanced enough to prove that all of these ancient
Hmm.
modalities, technologies, systems, ways of life have been teaching for millennia,
Yeah.
that we are more than our social security number, and how much
Right.
money is in our bank account, and who we're dating, and where we live, um, and
And
psychedelics are such a beautiful tool, again,
mhm.
to remember that, and not just remember like, oh, I have the somebody taught me that once and I can remember. Psychedelics give us firsthand, um, experiential,
Hmm.
um, um,
and
connectivity
and an
to God, to
opportunity,
something larger than self. Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Hmm. And an
And that
opportunity for.
experience, is
Hmm.
it's something that changes you, changes your understanding of reality.
Hmm.
So it's
Fundamentally. Because you've been
it's like,
exposed to something else that's more information. Now everything kind of shifts. It's like, wait, I thought it was this, but now there's more information. So the ability to be flexible
yes,
enough to like take in that information is important, but also the resiliency to still have an ego and not just dissolve into the all
right,
and never come back. Right? We need a
yeah,
flexible ego.
absolutely.
And I think
And
psychedelics teach us that.
they do. And
Hmm.
I just remember what I started to say, the opportunity to
Hmm.
remember. And if I love this word, and remember, become once again, or be reminded, and
Yeah.
one of the things that all these gurus that we're talking about, and these experiences we're discussing tend to lead to, and in the best of circumstances do lead to, it is a community, a chance to be reminded and be brought back into, because especially today, I mean, maybe not more than ever, but I think with everything happening in this great transition that we're experiencing, community is just, it's going to be a huge aspect of whether some people make it on to the other side of this thing, and I'm not just saying that, I'm not trying to fearmonger, but the isolation, is a great killer. It's
Hmm.
patently unhealthy for human beings. We're not wired to be isolated. Isolation will, just like in our bodies, it leads to death. It leads to the death of the
Hmm.
cell, it leads to the death of the person. And people tend to find, with their experience in psychedelics, particularly plant ceremonies, a community. And this can be a source of great, inspiration and healing. And I know that, as someone who is a mentor for transformative therapies, you know, you, you probably have more input on this than I do of the benefits of creating community, to hold integral spaces for healing, and why. Please tell everyone why it's so worth it for them to, get out of their comfort zone, if you will, get out of,
Get off of Zoom.
get off of Zoom and fucking go out. I mean,
Yeah.
the part of your mind that is starved for this, maybe to the point of flatline, is going to quicken its pulse when you break this habit. Because the only reason why maybe you haven't is because you've got out of the habit of it. But we
Mhm.
thrive on these new experiences, and we're wired for them. So
Mhm.
you can tell them more than I can. Why is it worth them for them to go out of their way to heal in a community as opposed to trying to do it alone?
Yeah, I think community is that missing piece that a lot of people don't talk about. It's something that the clinical trials aren't talking about for, MDMA assisted psychedelic therapy.
Hmm.
Community is where we go to heal, right? It's where we take our experiences to to be able to be vulnerable and to have that vulnerability received and accepted and normalized and celebrated.
Hmm.
Um, and that becomes it becomes a what do I want to say a resource
Yeah.
for us. And so in the psychedelic work, we have the preparation, navigation, integration, we have the medicine itself. But when you look at, say, history, right? If you trace back any culture far enough back, there's some use of some substance or non-ordinary
Yeah.
form of consciousness to remember our wholeness, to be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, wait, I'm more than just the dredges of the day to day. So whatever the modality, right? That's why they're all tools to be used, not just to sit up on the shelf, but to be collected, right?
Right.
We're here to use these tools. How do we wield them, sharpen them, um, refine them, and use them with skill? And uh, and all of these medicine ceremonies that you see are all done in community. You look at sweat lodges. You look at peyote
Hmm.
ceremonies. You look at ayahuasca
Hmm.
circles being done in the jungles. Even the Santo Daime, specifically of the medicine drinking communities.
Yeah.
It's like
There,
church. It's just like that's how they come together and pray.
yeah. There is no
It's a
indigenous tribe
cultural
that is not.
phenomenon.
Yeah. There is
Yeah,
no. You can't find an indigenous tribe without finding these traditions, because they had the ancient wisdom and technology. I
hmm
mean, this is
hmm
technology. This is nature's technology, and it's not
yeah,
here by accident. We didn't.
yeah,
It's not.
and
We didn't find them. Sure, maybe we found them and we picked them up, but there's a part of us that in our consciousness that understands what they are, even if we don't on a conscious level.
absolutely. And one of the reasons why I think the Western mind is so attracted to these medicines and to psychedelics, yes, because it's going to give you a better joy, better life, these things. But if you trace the energy of them and the origin of them, these indigenous, these first people traditions, um, that it's the use of these medicines is cultural,
Hmm.
right? It's part of how they commune with each other and with nature. The tribes say that they brewed ayahuasca because the plants told them
That's
to.
right.
Right? They're so interconnected with the jungles that they can see in the dark at night.
Hmm.
And ayahuasca is a master plant teacher, but they work in conjunction with this beautiful Amazonian shamanic herbalism that we call dieta, right? Where you prepare your body by cleansing it. You're basically eating a jungle diet where they don't have access to refined fats and sugars or fermented things
Right.
or salt. And so you're eating a jungle diet and dieting on jungle plants in isolation as a specific kind of medicine, right? Isolation being used for a specific purpose. When we cut out all of the distractions and the things that everybody else needs from us,
Like a retreat.
what comes through, oh yes, what comes through in the silence is powerful. And what comes through these other plants that you might be dieting with, the information or the energies of. And then these plants are helping prepare you for the ayahuasca ceremony. And if you're working in, say, the Shipibo tradition, and they're going to sing the Icaros to you,
oh my God,
then the plant that you've been dieting on, the Icaro that they're singing to you, is the song that that plant taught them. It is the song of that plant. And so they sing that plant song to the plant that's now a part of your body because you've been eating it. And it vibrates. It activates.
It undulates. It vibrates.
It undulates.
Yes, it undulates.
Yeah, exactly. They're singing to the plant within you that's now a part of the cellular structure of your body, and it can get into these places that are super uncomfortable. But it's cleaning out because those plants are being used in conjunction with specific kinds of symptoms that you might be experiencing. And so they're working inside out, but also outside in with, shamanism is the act of expanding our consciousness into something bigger than just the body and working in these more expanded states to heal the energetics around it and the beliefs around it so that the body can then catch up, right? The body being an outer expression of inner truths.
Yes.
So when you go to the jungle to heal, that's what they're doing. They're looking at all of you, not just the symptom of alcoholism or the symptom of cancer. They're looking at the emotions, the energies, the histories, and also the traditions. And it's a beautiful weaving and a marriage of so many different technologies that have been evolved from listening to the plants and working with and having a relationship with them.
For those
it's wild. It's wild.
It gets so wild. It's
the tapestries. Can I say this one piece too? So the tapestries that you see, these beautiful tapestries from Peru, if they're Shipibo, the women typically make them, and they are literally pictorial representations of the Icaros being sung. So the women in the tribes who are making them can sing them like sheet music. It blows my mind.
I have two beautiful tapestries in my living room upstairs. From the Shipibo.
So you can literally sit and look at it as a meditation, because that is the visual representation of the vibration of the songs being sung through the medicine in your body. Like, it's so layered. It's unexplainable and nuanced.
It's hard to do justice with. Yes. There's such an incredible
geek out about this stuff all day.
Well, I can too. I mean, it's to say that it's inspiring is an understatement. It's everything. And it can be everything. Sometimes in the same moment. It's the dichotomy is as infinite as this universe we're living in. It's hard to do justice, but in an experience, it surely is. And it can be the most profound and beautiful experience you've ever had. Certainly it can be that. It can also be
it's a technology. It's an ancient earth-based technology.
It
that has
is.
been
It's
honed and passed down for millennia, um, for the sake of wholeness.
yes, for the sake of wholeness, and with wholeness comes wellness, comes health, comes happiness,
Yeah,
almost across the
absolutely.
board. So
Absolutely.
it's a
Yeah, because those
remarkable
missing
journey to go
pieces
through.
get put back together, get
That's right.
remembered, right? Like all those
Hmm.
pieces get put back together, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, that sadness is because I was missing something, or that
And the lines
illness
get
because I was
straightened, right? Is
missing.
that's what
Mm.
the Shipibo, the patterns and the tapestries, they say, when don't they say when they sing that they're straightening those or connecting those lines? Isn't it something like that?
I haven't heard that. That's fascinating.
I
Yeah.
thought I heard someone say that once. I mean,
Hmm.
but the
Hmm.
Icaros is, I mean, it's and when it's coursing through your veins and in your body, and you realize that part of you knows the words to this beautiful song, and that it was
Yeah.
always in you, and that
Absolutely.
becomes part of you, especially when
Absolutely.
you integrate, which is something that
Yeah.
you can they people who are interested in this and living in Los Angeles can reach out to Skye Weaver to make sure that that is part of their process, because it's so important. But
Hmm.
I want to
Hmm.
get to cannabis, and the therapeutic work you do with cannabis, because
Hmm.
we've seen the explosion of cannabis across this nation, and I am at once an advocate of it, and I'm also a little bit wary of it because it's so damn. First of all, it's so strong, and I'm like I'm a lightweight. In general, I get a little trepidatious about it's because some of the stuff that they make is just so strong. But I would
Hmm.
love for you to talk about the therapeutic work you do, so that I can learn and people can also be reminded that there is somatic healing, and I would love to hear about how you like what you do and how you use this for healing, and how you use it differently than, like, let's say a recreational scenario, and why people should understand that there is a difference between using marijuana as escapism,
Hmm.
intoxication
Hmm. Hmm.
recreationally, and I'm fine with recreational use. I just
Hmm.
think that you need to be careful when it becomes a means of intoxication, so to speak, or a
Hmm.
way of
Hmm.
escaping,
Hmm.
like all our habits. And I would love to hear about how you do it and what the difference is.
Yeah. Wow. Like, so many parts to that. It's yeah, cannabis is such an ally. It's a medicine. You're talking about these like really strong strains. It's something that we have co-evolved with, right? It's been a symbiotic relationship, that we are cross pollinating
Like, yeah, like
and
dogs. Same thing with interbreeding. Yeah.
crossing DNA strands and doing clippings and these sorts of things. So we're evolving it, but at the same time, we are imbibing the medicine,
Mm-hmm.
which is inspiring and evolving us. So it's this beautiful symphony, this beautiful dance that's
Yeah.
happening with this beautiful plant ally. Um, and you had used the word somatic earlier, and I just, for listeners who don't know, somatic meaning like of or through the body. So we have this consciousness, this soul that lives in this body of ours. And our body is our interactive interface through all of our senses with that which is self and that which is other. And it can be a really beautiful place to reorient to. When I'm doing somatic work with people, we're always asking, okay, so as you tell me that story about that thing in the past, what
Mm.
do you notice about your body as you say that? Right. So we're always coming back to the now, right? And the Eckhart Tolle, power of now, always referring
Mm-hmm.
back to now. And there's beautiful information that lives in the body if we choose to orient to it. because the body knows, right? That's where our
Mm.
intuition lives. It's where our
The
sexuality
body
lives.
knows. Yeah.
It's the body knows. The body keeps the score, right? Bessel van der Kolk. That's where trauma lives, in the
That's right.
body, right? Even if it's just a memory, that's a neural pathway. That's in the
Feelings.
body.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, the healing
Habits.
lives in the body. The habits live in the body, right? The emotions live in the body. When you have an emotion, it's literally a, a hormonal cocktail that makes you
Yeah.
feel a certain way. And we get addicted to our emotions, right?
Yes, we
Our
do.
emotions that make us feel, right? Emotions versus feelings. And when we feel our bodies, right? So, so cannabis, we like to call a somatic psychedelic because it helps us to kind of tune in to
Oh,
um, that inner
are you
world,
there?
and can really not only like, do I feel, what do I feel in my shoulder, or can I feel my womb, but also I've had experiences where eyes closed, I looked down, I could see the chakras, I could see my chakra systems,
Wow.
the wheels spinning
Yeah.
inside my body, right? And eyes closed, I could see the other participants in the room in their light
Mm.
bodies. So it can be very visual in that way. Most of what I do in this work when I'm talking about cannabis is like educating people, because most people don't
Mm.
know that cannabis is a psychedelic,
Mm.
unless they've had a really hard time on too many edibles, and then they're like, oh yeah,
Oh
definitely a
yeah.
psychedelic.
Yeah.
Like, I did
Ah,
that at Burning Man. I had like the pinch of the corner of a
yeah.
brownie that had like 1,000 milligrams in
Oh
it,
my
which is
God.
just ungodly
That can
amount,
be
like a
fucking.
pinch of a corner. And I had to almost be carried home
Yeah.
that night because I couldn't walk. I wasn't in my
Then you
body.
know, without a
And
shadow of a
then you
doubt, it is a
know,
fucking
right?
psychedelic and a powerful one at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And edibles are different than smoking because it goes through the liver, so you don't know how
Mhm.
long it'll take, how strong it'll be, or how long it'll last.
Yeah.
So when I work, I prefer to smoke or actually vape.
Yeah.
Vaping is better for the body, for
Yeah.
the respiratory system, and you're also getting slightly different terpenes when you're vaping versus burning or smoking,
Yeah.
right? Versus edibles, which have mostly been processed, at least heated into some
Yeah.
butter in order to get it into the brownie or something like that.
Right.
So different processing will open up different parts of
Yeah.
each plant, which is really cool. And when we work with it therapeutically or ceremonially, um, it we are creating structures, either groups or one-on-one work. Group is akin to an ayahuasca ceremony,
Hmm.
but it doesn't last as long, though
Hmm.
one could continue to
Right.
imbibe. And the experience that we have in other collective medicine spaces of being alone together, you
Hmm.
do still get that same experience. You're doing your deep inner work, but you're together. You can kind of feel the energy of the room
Yeah.
around you, especially when we put breath work with the cannabis work.
Oh
It's
yeah.
whoo, ooh. Then, because you have the breath work, we're getting experiences like 5-MeO-DMT like experiences.
Oh
And
yeah.
this is just cannabis. It's legal in most states. It's
Yeah.
safe to use on a daily basis. You can do it by yourself, or you can do it recreationally or recreationally, as we
Hmm.
recreate
Oh, I
ourselves
like that. Yeah.
through joy and play, right? You and your
Yeah.
words. I knew you'd like that one. I'm a wordsmith too, so I don't discount recreational use,
Yeah.
but it's the intention behind it.
Hmm.
Um, just like our relationships with humans, or with
Hmm.
our little fur babies that we
Yeah.
are guardians of, our intention is everything.
Yeah.
And so, as we are relating, if we think of animism, that everything has, everything is alive, everything has a soul, everything has a
Yeah.
consciousness to it. that different substances are going to heal us in different ways, or just nourish us through our food,
Yeah.
right? Same. Um, and so with cannabis, we're working with the energy of the goddess,
Mm.
of the mother medicine. Like ayahuasca, we say is the grandmother medicine,
Right.
but or the cactuses or the grandfather
Mm-hmm.
medicines. But cannabis is the mother medicine. If we think of all of her other names, Mary Jane, Santa Maria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mother Mary. It's this mother goddess
Yeah.
archetype. Um, and we imbibe the nectar of her flower to alter our consciousness. You know, how much more feminine or sexy does it get?
Right. No.
Um, and she's like a mother. She can be firm, but she can also be so loving. And this medicine is brilliant for trauma work because
Mm.
one of the qualities of it is that there's choice. And it gives you your agency back. It gives you back, you remember, and it gives you the opportunity to practice inside your mind with working in it in ceremony or externally. It gives you the experience of being able to affect change in the world around you.
Yeah. And
Right.
it's
Whereas with other medicines, bigger medicines, quote unquote, we are a leaf on the river and all you can do is
yeah.
surrender and you're going that way. Right.
Right.
Like that's, that's all you can do. Good luck.
Yeah. Just
But with cannabis, yeah, I
I
like
was
to
gonna
say
say,
you're on the same river, but you're in a kayak with your oar and your life vest, and your helmet, you're
right.
navigating.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, don't
So,
just don't throw your oars overboard.
you know,
Don't make the same
unless,
mistake
yeah.
I did.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I was like,
Hold
woohoo!
on.
And then I was like, oh God, what have I done?
Oh man, wish I hadn't thrown those oars overboard.
No, I was literally like, what? I'm never gonna be able to come back from this. I'm so far downriver. But I
Yeah.
learned so much from that. It was incredible.
Right. So
Yeah.
how much, like, what a gift it is for a medicine to come along and give you your oars back.
My God.
Right? To be like,
Yeah.
oh, there are things ahead. There are things
Mhm.
now. There are things in your past. Imagine what that thing in the past would have been like if you had had your oars.
Yeah.
You know? And so giving you the ability to choose,
That's it.
to affect change. And the fact that trauma is because there's no choice, right? It just kind of
That's right.
comes at you. It's too much, too soon, too fast. You have no agency. You have no choice. It overwhelms the system, and so
Yes.
it becomes frozen in that moment in the
And
body.
then,
And
yeah.
so when we work with cannabis and we're body oriented, we're somatically oriented, we're able to actually locate that
Hmm.
trauma in the body, not only in the memory, but in where it might be stuck in the body.
Yeah.
And there have been experiences in myself and in other clients where the body will literally start moving itself and unwinding the fascia, the
Amazing.
connective tissue, the trauma, the hunching, how we when we feel overwhelmed and our body starts to collapse, it'll
Hmm.
start to like unwind or even shake it
Yeah.
out of our bodies. Um,
And that's
so a lot of
that
this
is literally the
process,
metabolization, where the body's
hmm yeah,
metabolizing these
it's alchemy.
peptides, which it has stored because the body is, it's a set of biological programs. And what do we do with fat? The body stores the fat. We don't need it. Well, with happiness and joy, the body is like, oh yeah, I know what to do with this. But
I
trauma
know
and
what to
pain
do
come
with
around,
this.
and the body's like,
Yeah.
it there's a natural, and it's,
I'm just
as
gonna
above
put
so
that over there in
below.
that corner. Yeah.
Just,
Like, what do I
we
do with
don't
that?
we're programmed to avoid, pain.
hmm
And so
Yeah.
the body has a similar system. It tends to store it,
Yeah. hmm
and then what happens is it gets stuck, and then all of a
It
sudden
gets
it's like,
heavy.
why? I have this chronic pain. I have no fucking idea where it came from. Well, there's a good possibility it came from something that happened. And this is a great, sounds like a fantastic, I know that breath work can be amazing. And this sounds like, it really, if you've ever had a sexual experience on cannabis, it can be, pretty mind blowing. I mean, sex in general obviously can be, but, I can imagine with the right intention, just how powerful this can be in a healing session.
Absolutely.
It's very clear to me now. So that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And so,
Thank you for
and so
sharing.
we're also, we're also like building skill sets. We're remembering how to play. We're incorporating our our child self.
Yes.
We're building resiliency for that fucked up world we find ourselves living in. We can build these skill sets within the psychedelic space. We can prepare for other bigger medicines with
Yeah.
cannabis. We can build skill sets to be able to apply to these bigger medicines. We can use cannabis to integrate from bigger experiences that we haven't been able to complete, like tie that bow or complete that thing, or even have that conversation with that person that we need to have before we actually go and talk to them, right? We can like rehearse experiences.
Yeah.
We can rehearse things that we're realizing that we need to do. She's such an ally. I sometimes imagine like my mom sitting on the bed next to me and being like, okay, so when you go to school, what are you going to say? What are you going to say to that bully?
Yeah.
Right? Or what are you going to say when you go and talk to your best friend? You just had an argument with her. What are you going to
Yeah.
say? Just gives us so much time and space to be able to be with ourselves, and to work through all the things.
It's so beautiful. And I that was so educational for me. I guess I never imagined, and I should have. It's not that cannabis is so foreign to me, or that I've, I have some right here, not far from my
We're
left hand.
undereducated about it,
Right, but we're
right?
undereducated
We
about
just don't know. Yeah,
it. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. And
that's
I'm sure there's
amazing.
even more potentials out there.
Yes.
And this modality was developed by Daniel McQueen at Medicinal Mindfulness. And Daniel and his husband Allison actually worked with MAPS in the past. I think on phase 2 trials with the MDMA research. So the protocols, the potentiality, the work that's being done, you don't need to wait until MDMA or psilocybin are legal. You can be doing this work one-on-one therapeutically with people like me or any of the practitioners, to do this work completely legally, and very, very safely. And then when you're done, you're done.
Right.
The side effects are very minimal. The contraindications, other than psychosis, are minimal, and it's safe to work with and available now. It's
Yeah,
really
it's amazing.
mind
So
blowing.
it's so not a whole lot to gain, and not really so much to lose. But if you're curious or in the right place to go for it, go for it.
Yeah.
And if you're in the Los Angeles area, call Skye. I would.
Yeah, and we've been
That's
doing
amazing.
this work online during COVID. Like, I wouldn't suggest
Yeah.
doing other medicines, facilitating other medicines online, but I've been doing circles and one-on-one work online with people too.
Amazing.
And it translates beautifully because you're already home. You're in the comfort of your own bed. You're surrounded by your animals, your favorite places. And the last little piece that I'd love to share too is that, just like any beautiful selfless mother, that this medicine is forging the path forward for the decriminalization movement for other psychedelics. The fact that we have states' rights with cannabis, and she's come forward to be able to open the pathway, and she will actually allow the decriminalization of most likely MDMA and psilocybin
Yeah.
before cannabis is even decriminalized federally. Like, she's opening
That's
the path
crazy.
and holding the door open for
She's the gateway drug.
all.
She's the
She's the
gateway.
gateway drug, right? Exactly. She
Prophetic.
is, and she's opening that gate for us and for all of these other beautiful healing modalities and medicines to come through. And so I hope I do see that one day,
Yeah.
cannabis, right? They're not even researching her much. A lot of
No.
people kind of poo-poo cannabis work. They're like,
They
oh,
think
there's
that
no
I
research. I'm
know.
like,
It's that they think they know
there was
everything.
no research on MDMA either before somebody
Right.
started doing it. And so,
Yeah.
she's here. She's available. She's waiting patiently, humbly, for you to approach, and she'll be very happy when you do.
Amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
amazing. We have to wrap things up, but I want to give you an opportunity to tell everyone where they can find you. Where, if they want to find you online, if you have a social media, tell everyone where to find you and the amazing work that you're doing.
Yeah, I am on all the socials. I'm mostly on Instagram. It's the one that I engage with. And then most of my Facebook shares are just reposts from
Yeah.
Instagram, which is nice, auto share. But I am at the Skye Weaver on all of the social platforms,
Cool.
at the Skye Weaver. I'm sure you'll put that in the link in bio or
Yes.
whatever you guys
Yes.
have here.
We got you.
And yeah, so reach out to me. Through a message, and I would love to
I'm going to
share
message you.
with you. Okay, please. Yeah, I would love that. It's so fun. Like, you and I didn't meet until we showed up
It's
for this
crazy.
today. So
I know.
it was really cool. I was like, I hope he likes me. That little
No,
imposter
yeah.
syndrome, that young part of me is like, oh, I hope I do okay. So thank you for
Well, you're
your
welcome.
hosting and your skill, and for just putting me at ease today. This is really,
You're
really a
so
treat.
welcome, and I like you a lot, and I respect you, and I think the work you're doing is so important, and you're definitely a kindred soul. We have so much in common,
Yeah, right.
and it's amazing. I'm glad we're meeting now, as opposed to
Me too.
15 years ago. It's at an audition or at a stage, or
Yeah, I wouldn't have been ready. Yeah. We would
it
have
would have
just
been
been
a
like, oh.
different interaction. This is much better, I think. But I'm
Exactly.
so grateful for your time, and your
Yeah.
wisdom, and I'm so glad that our mutual friend Dorian, she introduced us, because it was profound. It was amazing. I'm grateful.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. So grateful too. Yeah. Um, I'll close with one little thing, if I could.
Please.
Yeah, we were talking about, like, going and, like, getting a master's in acting, like all this training and
Hmm.
acting, and that in the acting world, you're learning how to be other people. So
Yeah.
I always say that, like, getting a master's or training and being other people, but that medicine work is actually a practice in getting a master's and being yourself.
Yes.
So it's a really profound teacher in that way, and I hope people can drop in whatever safe, ethical,
Mm.
integral ways they can find to do this work. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And journey back to self is the greatest journey we can make. Self and self love and self advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Thank
Everyone
you.
who's listening, if you're listening and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Check out Skye on Instagram. Check us out on Instagram. And thank you so much for staying with us. And gratitude and blessings to everyone. Skye, thank you again. I'll be in touch when we know when the premiere is coming in, and we'll cut some clips for social media, and we'll make sure we get them to you.
Sure. Pleasure.
Thank you so much, my friend. You take care.
Mhm.